Hi everyone, it's Mr. D from Mr. D Math, and I'm here with a really special guest. I'm so excited. As we're talking about a whole video series in the Learning Center for Bridgeway Academy, the math you need to know, guess who's here with me today?
Hey guys, it's Jessica from Bridgeway Academy. Excited to be here with Mr. D.
It's so great that we're able to come out, work in different places, and what you may not know is that Jessica and I live in completely different parts of the world, really, but we're here today together in Gulfport, Florida. You need to look on the map. Where's Gulfport, Florida? Totally cool place. And here we are, and again, as you look and see what's happening, we're going to be talking about the math you need to know, so get ready. There's another really great video and exercise for you to work on so you can get it, got it, and go. This is Mr. D from Mr. D Math and
Jessica from Bridgeway Academy. And this is the math you need to know.
Let's talk about cookies. I don't know about you, but I like cookies, especially chocolate chip cookies. Actually, what we're going to talk about today is the order of operations, but let's use cookies as an example. I know you're probably hungry right now. Hang in there. This won't take long, and then you can go have some cookies yourself. So let's see. What do we got here? Well, how many cookies do you see? You're probably saying to yourself, Mr. D, that's so easy. Of course I know how many cookies it is. I can count them. There are 3 cookies, just like that. You probably said that already, going like, that's easy. What if we had more cookies? How about how many cookies do you see now? By the way, you could count those all at one time, but if you notice and you go at the top left and start and go across, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going across and 4 going down. So we could count by fives. 5, 10, 15, 20 cookies. Another thing you might say is like, hey, when you make that picture of a rectangle, it makes a multiplication problem. 5 times 4, which is 20. So you may have guessed that already and said, yeah, I can see that. There's 20 cookies. And there's my 5 times 4, just like we said. 5 times 4 makes 20 cookies. Okay, well, what if we had to count them all together? Well, you already know that we had 3 cookies from the first time we counted them, and we just saw that we had 20 cookies, so if I counted them all together, well, of course I'd have 23 cookies. So if I have that 23 cookies, how did I get the 23 cookies? Well, we actually did a math problem. 3 plus 5 times 4. And there it is. 3 plus 5 times 4, we know equals 23. But how do you work that out? If you had to write it down and show your work or put it in a calculator, what would you do? Well, we have something called the order of operations that helps us decide what to do first and when to do it. Let's check and see. Does that mean this? 3 plus 5 times 4? Well, 3 plus 5 is 8. And 8 times 4 is 32? No, we know it doesn't mean that. We know it's supposed to be 23. So if I just went left to right, 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 times 4 is 32. It doesn't work that way. How does it work? It really works this way. 3 plus 5 times 4, which we do the multiply first. 5 times 4 is 20, and then we add the 3. That is the way it works, and we use something called the order of operations to know what to do and when to do it. Let's take a look at some examples of how it works so you can use the order of operations as well. If you've ever seen these letters before, there's a couple of ways to pronounce what we see here. This is an acronym. These 6 letters each stand for something in math, which we call the order of operations. And some people read it like this. They call it PEMDAS. Others of you may have heard it this way, where you call it, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Well, either way, they both work, and it's the order of operations so that we don't make the mistake like we saw with the cookies of how do you know what to do first when you see something like 3 plus 5 times 4. We know that it's 23, but the order of operations helps us to know what to do and when to do it. So let's take a look at each letter in PEMDAS and see what it means. So you're going to see first is that we have the P, and the P, anytime you see parentheses in a problem, you're always going to start there and do that first. The E is something that we call exponents. Like if I said 3 to the second power. What does 3 to the second power mean? Well, the exponent is the 2, and what that means is that we do the exponents next. 3 to the second power just means do 3 and then times 3. So we would start with parentheses. When we're done with the parentheses, or we're inside the parentheses, do the exponents first. Okay, well, we're only going to work with the next 4, which is our multiply, divide, add, and subtract. But they're done in a particular order. Multiply and divide come next. We use the little X symbol for multiplication and the division symbol, but we do those how? Well, we do them in a particular way, together, in order from left to right. The last piece we're going to do is the addition and subtraction. And how do we do that? Well, the same way, add and subtract in order from left to right. It makes a difference when you see that. We'll talk more about that when you come into a pre-algebra or algebra 1 course with me. We'll talk about why it works that way, but for now, if you just can keep in mind, we're going to do multiply and divide in order from left to right, add and subtract in order from left to right. Now we saw from our example with the cookies that if we saw 3 plus 5 times 4, we know that it's going to equal 23. Now how does that work with the order of operations? Well, here's the wrong way to do it. The wrong way to do it would be to say do this. Do 3 plus 5, just go straight across, 3 plus 5, which is 8, and then 8 times 4 would be 32, but we know that's the wrong answer. Doesn't work that way. So what we do instead is we actually use the order of operations, and the order of operations tell us to do what? Well, the order of operations say start with the multiplication and division. Notice there's no parentheses, there's no exponents, so we do multiply and divide. How? Well, we do them in order from left to right. So we see here that we see 5 times 4, which we know is 20, and then we're going to come back in and say we're adding with that the 3. Now we're going to do add and subtract in order from left to right, and there's our 23. That one does work. That's the right way to do it. As you're starting your school year, you might be starting to work with calculators. So I want to show you a little bit about the calculator because I want to make sure that when you use a calculator that you know whether or not your calculator knows how to do the order of operations. So before you make the purchase and investment into a calculator, make sure that you know what kind of calculator you have and how it works. Let's check out 3 different calculators and see if they know the order of operations. So as you see, I have 3 calculators here. I have this pretty pink one. I found this in the store for under $1, so it was a quick, easy calculator to buy. I found this TI-30X in a store for under $15, and I used this with my pre-algebra, algebra 1, and geometry students. And then the TI-84 we use for algebra 2, pre-calculus, calculus, and beyond, the TI-84 graphing calculator, and this is almost $100 itself. So as you can see, this calculator costs a lot more and it does a lot more things. But let's see, can it do the order of operations? So I'm going to turn it on by turning on the on button right here, and I click it, and there we go, and I have my little flash up there, and I'm going to put in that problem. What was the problem? 3 plus 5 times 4, and it's supposed to equal 23. Let's see if this calculator knows the order of operations. So here's 3 plus 5, and then multiply by 4. By the way, when you start seeing calculators that are going to be your scientific and graphing calculators, even computers, we stop using the X for a time sign and we use the asterisk. So just keep in mind there, that's a time sign that you see in a computer or with a more sophisticated calculator like the TI-84. Okay, well, I'm going to press my enter button here and see, do we get 23? And guess what? This calculator, the TI-84 Plus, knows the order of operations. All right, well, let's check out the next one. What about the TI-30X, the 2S here? Does this know the order of operations? Well, let's turn it on with the on button. And here we go. I'm going to take this calculator and do the same thing. 3 plus 5 times 4. And when I do 3 plus 5 times 4, well, look at that. This knows the order of operations as well. All right, well, what about this fun little pink calculator down here? Let's turn this one on and let's see what's going to happen here. 3 plus 5 times 4. And I put it in and uh-oh, I got 32. That's a problem. Guess what? This little pink calculator doesn't know the order of operations, and so I would recommend not using one like this, but get one like a scientific calculator, and you'll learn all about the rest of these buttons as you get into your middle school and high school classes, how to use them. They're actually quite fun to work with and play with, and they're great to use when you have more sophisticated kinds of problems. Let's just see. Do I want a calculator like this? No, it gets a sad face. How about a calculator like this? Absolutely. This calculator knows the order of operations. It gets a happy face. And over here, well, this calculator's so big, I'll put the happy face right beside it, but my TI-84 as well knows the order of operations. So you're going to see some practice problems that you can work on as well. I want to show you one more kind of practice problem so you can see how to do these yourself. And then what you'll do is be able to practice the practice problems and check things with a calculator. Make sure that you know how your calculators work as well. Very important in today's world to be up to date on the most current technology. So let's check out one more example, and then you can go and do some practice for yourself. Well, let's take a look at this example and see exactly what to do. Now, remember, we're going to be working with what? Well, we're going to be working with PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply, and divide in order together from left to right, add and subtract in order together from left to right. Notice there's no parentheses, there's no exponents, so I'm going right to multiply and divide in order from left to right, which is why I underline the two letters together at the same time. If I see here, I see I have 4 minus. Well, I don't do subtract yet. 12 divided by 6. Oh, I do that first. Okay, so 12 divided by 6, I'm actually going to work that out. And it's going to look like this. 12 divided by 6 gives me a 2. I keep going. Plus, no, I don't add yet, but oh, I see 3 times 2. That's a multiply. So I'm saying do 3 times 2, which is going to be 6. But I still have what? Well, I still have this plus sign because I do have to add. I still have this minus sign because I do have to subtract. And I still have a 4 that I haven't done anything with yet. So now, what do you do next? Well, you do the add and subtract in order from left to right. Watch what happens if you don't do that, because some people say, but add is the first one. It comes before you subtract. AS. Doesn't work that way. Look what happens. If I did, and I did 2 plus 6 first, and I tried to do the add first, I would have 8, and then 4 minus 8 actually makes a negative number, negative 4. But that's not what this equals, because we'll check it with our calculator in just a moment. You have to do the order of operations in order. That's why we have the order of operations. It tells us how to do this. So we start this way. Add and subtract together in order from left to right. Looks like this. 4 minus 2, which is going to be 2, and then 2 plus 6, that equals 8, and that's actually what our answer is. Okay, now we know the little pink calculator can't do this problem very well, but I know my TI-30 can, so let's do it on there, and you can see on the screen what it looks like. So here's that problem, and we're supposed to get 8. Let's put it in, and we see this. We see 4 minus 12 divided by 6 plus 3 times 2, and I have it up there the same way that I can see here. By the way, there's a division sign that we use the little slash when you see a calculator like this as well, and the asterisk for the multiply sign. Okay, well, what happens now? Well, I'm supposed to get 8. Let's see. I'll hit the equal sign, and look at that. I got the 8 just like I was supposed to. So when you're working with the problems in the practice sections, go ahead and try it out for yourself. Do it by hand. Check your work, but you can also check your work with a calculator. Just make sure that your calculator knows how to do the order of operations, just like you do now as well. This is Mr. D from Mr. D Math, and I'll see you next time.